With us tonight here on Closing Arguments, and this hour we're going to focus on the case involving the death of Gabby Petito. Okay, take a look, folks. Here she is. Everyone is talking about this story, and for many different reasons. But at this point, and in this hour, we're going to talk about and try to figure out how do investigators figure out exactly what happened here. We know it was a homicide, but what happened? Why did it happen? And who is responsible? And we'll get to that in just a moment. But I want to start off with the search for this man, Brian Laundrie, her boyfriend slash fiance, the man on the side of the road convincing police officers that he was the victim of domestic violence, but not really, so he didn't want to press charges. He's missing. He's on the lam. He's gone. He's in the wind. According to his parents, he was going to go for a hike at the local reserve down in Florida, left on a Tuesday, and then by the time they got to Friday, they realized that he wasn't coming back, so then his parents went to police. So that's where we are. I want to show you what Joe Fussell, the Northport Police Department commander, had to say about the area that they are searching. And again, this is based upon information that they received from the parents of Brian Laundrie.
Terrain's very difficult. Essentially, 75% of it's underwater, and other areas that are dry, we're trying to clear. So we're expecting to get wet by the end of the day and check the entire area for Brian Laundrie.
This is an extensive search, and you've got a lot of different organizations that are coming in to help in the search, including the Sarasota County Sheriff's Underwater Recovery Force. There they are, bringing in the boats and the dive team. And as you heard from the commander from Northport, 75% of the area they're searching is water. It's underwater. It's swampy. Here's what they posted. We continue to respond to requests for mutual aid from neighboring law enforcement agencies and federal partners to confirm, yes, members of our Sheriff's Underwater Recovery Force, SURF, have responded to Carlton Reserve. This in addition to our emergency response team, Air One and Patrol. SURF team members or divers called upon to search bodies of water for evidence. These highly trained deputies work in the most difficult and challenging environments imaginable. They are on call 24/7, 365. So that's where we are tonight. This search and manhunt is underway. What have they found? Nothing yet. That's the latest that they are revealing to us tonight. So let's bring in our guests, all experienced investigators. Joining me in Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen. In Jacksonville, Alabama, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, forensic media analyst, and former senior investigator for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, Joseph Scott Morgan is with us. And in New York, private investigator who's featured in the Crime and Punishment documentary, award-winning documentary, and the founder of Black Ops Private Investigators, Manuel Gomez is with us. All right, great to have everyone here. Joseph Scott Morgan, want to begin with you. Just on the surf team that is there. Dive team. My understanding this was swampy, but you've got a dive team now there. What are we talking about, and what could we possibly find?
Yeah, you can't, in those waters, you can't even see your hand in front of your face, and they're specialized. These dive team members, many of them are actually certified as underwater crime scene processors. And one of the things that I've held forth relative to this, if this individual went into these swamps with a specific intent to take his life, that would be one of the resources that you would call upon. But Vinny, I got to say something right here that I feel very passionately about. If, and I mean if, a single hair on the head of any of these rescue divers, EMTs, police officers is harmed in any way during this search, whoever is withholding information regarding this fellow, that should be held to their account when it comes time to prosecute. I hope everybody understands what I'm saying that. We've had these nonsensical cases in the past, like the infamous runaway bride case, where she was held accountable. And by God, in this case, these individuals are in a very dangerous environment. I started my career in South Louisiana. I've been around alligators. I've been around snakes. I've had friends that were actually injured by alligators, recovering dead bodies. Let me tell you something. This is not playtime. Okay, the people need to get their heads screwed on straight.
Jason Jensen, the other big part of all of this is the timeline. And you're talking about Tuesday, the 12th, is when he apparently went on a hike. And then it's like Friday, or maybe the 14th, and then it's Friday, the 17th, is when the parents report that he is gone, that he hasn't returned. Got a lot of head time to kind of take off. And that's got me concerned, whether he's in the reserve or whether he is somewhere else. He had a lot of time to get somewhere else, Jason.
Well, exactly. So the question is, was the car staged there at the Carlton Reserve? And, they bought Brian 4 days head start to get away? Or is he actually there at the reserve where he intended to harm himself? We don't know. And it's troubling to me. Like Joseph said, if somebody gets injured trying to find this guy, whether he's there or not, it's shame on everybody else who could have prevented that.
Manuel Gomez, I know you search for a lot of missing people, but there's a little difference between someone who goes missing and someone who is hiding, as Gabby's family has pointed out appropriately in this case. Let's talk about some of the challenges that investigators are going to have here.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say immediately is I hope that law enforcement right now is using infrared technologies, which is at their access with the FBI and the National Guard, and this would solve the problem in this reserve, because you would see his body temperature hidden in a tent or a location at night, and he would pop up clear as day. So I'm hoping that they're using that, because that would definitely reduce any injuries being that could possibly occur to law enforcement. But I don't hear anybody using that type of technology. So I'm kind of a little disappointed in that aspect. I see them using dogs and everything else and every other kind of technology, but I don't see them pulling out the big guns, which is using the infrared, having the helicopters sweep the area so we can determine if he's there or not.
Well, the sheriff has said they're using Air One, but I don't know what type of technology or tools that the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office has on their hands there. I know some of the other sheriff's departments down in Florida do in fact do that, because we play the videos on this show every week. But I'm not sure about Sarasota County. That is an important aspect. Justice Scott Morgan, your thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have resources from Customs Interdiction. They have infrared, also DEA. Remember, they run the coast all the time looking for smugglers. And, right our guests are relative to searching with infrared. It'll make anything that's out there that is still living stand up. And, it's so fine tuned compared to the way it was years and years ago. You can actually make out forms in this. So if you're talking about a human being, this is going to look different than, say, a deer that might be out there, or even some wild boar which inhabits this area, and they just have a horrible time with them down there trying to eradicate them. And anything else that's pumping blood, you're going to be able to pick it up with that. And I think that's an excellent resource to call to bear. I would hope that the feds would offer that technology up.
Oh, Manuel, let me ask you, how long would it take to cover an area this wide? And I presume, right, you have to do it at night. Is there a level of danger in doing that as well?
Well, no. I mean, if we bring in the National Guard has this technology already on their helicopters. Okay, we use it in war. I'm a retired 18th Airborne military intelligence officer, so I'm very familiar with this technology. And you're talking about 4 Black Hawks with this technology can cover that area within maybe 5 or 6 hours, okay, scanning back and forth. As the other gentleman said, it will show a human form, and it will be different from the form of an animal and so forth. the best thing about this technology that we have, and the National Guard can be at the resources of the FBI with permission from the governor. And they will do a joint task force mission to do this. But I haven't heard anybody doing it. I mean, you would solve the problem of this park within 2 days. They would be able to scan this park.
And it seems like the most efficient and perhaps the safest way, based on what Joseph Scott Morgan is telling us, if you're sending dive teams in with alligators and everything else is there, maybe it's a little bit easier to do from the air. Jason Jensen, let's go in a whole different direction here. The other part of this is we know the impact that social media has had on this investigation, right? And people are posting things. There are pictures that are popping up. Is it him? Is it not him? Yes, I saw him. How much time do you think investigators have to spend just sifting through all the tips that are coming in and the theories that are being posted online and the images that are being posted online?
There are so many people that are actively trying to find him in any other location other than the Carlton Reserve that it literally must take a couple agents full time to sift through all the tips. And some of the images that I've seen that have been shared with me are very grainy. So unless it's clear cut who there is looking at, they shouldn't probably send it in to the FBI as a tip because it's not very helpful if it's not very clear.
What are your thoughts, Manuel, about the role of the armchair detective who is at home and who is looking at videos, and people are posting videos? A lot of people are posting videos from Wyoming, and it seemed to help to a certain extent there, but others posting videos from around the country of images and stories of potential sightings here.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that point up because you just touched on something that the United States is suffering from. We're suffering from a silent crisis. And the crisis is our missing person situation in the U.S. is 600,000 people a year go missing. And that is, as per the United States Department of Justice, National Unidentified Missing Persons Bureau. Not only that, but while we've been on the show, every 90 seconds, a person goes missing. We need to have an alert system. Like we have the Amber Alert system, which tells you there's a hurricane coming. We have the Amber Alert system, which tells you there's a flood coming. But we don't have a system posting up adults who go missing so that we can post their pictures to everyone's cell phone. And this would reduce the work that the law enforcement and investigators like myself have to do. Unfortunately, with all these tips coming in, you're talking about thousands and thousands of man hours. But like I said, we would narrow down this person if we had and I like to call it a Gabby alert system that would send out these photos, and we could reduce this missing person epidemic that we have in the United States. I mean, right now, we have more people going missing than COVID is killing. And nobody's done nothing in 10 years, nothing. And then right now, if you go into a police precinct and report a person missing who is an adult over 18, the average wait before a cop takes action is 72 hours to 96 hours. And this is the problem. It's not that just the Northport Police Department dropped the ball. It's the entire system dropping the ball from the FBI down because we are not taking these cases seriously. 600,000 people a year missing, 600,000 possible Americans missing all year long, every year. This is unacceptable. And we have done nothing to correct this problem.
Joseph Scott Morgan, let me ask you, it's obvious that investigators have more information than they've released, right? They've gone through digital footprints, everything else. The fact that they are so focused in this one area, do you think it is based upon just the words of his parents, or do you think they have some level of corroboration to lead them to believe that he is actually in there somewhere hiding?
I think it's significant that they flipped a switch today and brought in the dive team. And they are focused. And remember, they shifted from one area to the other. Now, I don't know if they're just doing this methodically as a result of using some kind of grid search where they're just attempting to kind of leg this thing out and break it down grid by grid, which is very, very tedious work, to say the least. But it would seem that they're pouring tons and tons of resources into this. And also, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the reality is they are the most precious resource we have are those that are public safety individuals that do this job day in and day out. And they are literally being put out there on the front lines in this very hostile environment. And I cannot emphasize that enough relative to the level of danger that you're going to experience out there. For one, when you have people running through all of these various cuts that you see, these canals going up and down, these little backwaters, you're literally getting the animal life stirred up. So their level of intensity also rises. Their awareness of what's in their environment. You get these things stirred up, they get frightened. So the first person might not get it, but the second person very well might. So the fact that they're pushing these resources out there, it gives us an indication they have some kind of information or something is leading them to this environment. I'm still having a real hard time coming to the conclusion, though, that he is physically there. I'll believe it when I see them dragging him out either in handcuffs or in a body bag.
All right, our investigators are going to stay with us. Jason Jensen, Joseph Scott Morgan, Manuel Gomez. When we return, we're going to shift the focus back to Gabby Petito and look at, okay, how do you figure out exactly what happened, why it happened, and who is responsible? That's next. I think one of the reasons that the story of Gabby Petito has garnered so much interest and people have become invested in it is the photos from Instagram and thinking, why? Like, what reason could you possibly have for taking her life? Why would you do it? Like, what would motivate you to do that? If they're not married, there's nothing but the rest of their lives in front of them. You know, being at that age, 22, being free to do whatever you want to do. And that's kind of what they were doing, we thought, but the picture's much grimmer and became extremely grim when we saw this tweet from the FBI in Denver making the announcement. Do we have that? The FBI tweet? Okay, I'll read it to you, folks. The Teton County coroner, Dr. Brent Blue, confirmed the remains are those of Gabrielle Venora Petito. Date of birth, March 19th, 1999. Coroner Blue's initial determination for the manner of death, and this is where it is, this is where we are. Homicide. Homicide. The cause of death remains pending final autopsy results. Now, Cindy Glenn, a reporter for our great affiliate KSTU in Salt Lake City, was there on the scene where Gabby's body was discovered. Take a look.
This is the first time we're getting a look inside the Spread Creek dispersed camping area in the Bridgerton-Teton National Forest. This area has been closed off for days as law enforcement searched for and believe they eventually found Gabby Petito. You can see right behind me in this creek area, we saw several indicators that police have searched this area. We also found what appears to be a memorial. It's a rock formation of a cross right near the creek there.
A couple things about that. Number one, I look at that area where she was, and Spread Creek is exactly where the YouTubers, Red, White, and Bethune, were driving their van through with the GoPros on, and they spotted the white van, Gabby's white van, right on the side of the road. And I'm wondering, was it that video and that tip that led investigators to that area and they were able to find Gabby's remains? The other part was that cross. I want to talk about that as well. Still with me, private investigator Jason Jensen, also professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan, and private investigator Manuel Gomez. Joseph Scott Morgan, death investigator. How do we get to manner of death homicide without getting the final determination of the cause of death, right? Don't you need to know the cause to figure out if it was homicide, suicide, accident, natural causes?
Yeah, you do. And I can tell you in that crowded autopsy suite that they were in yesterday, those individuals that were in there, they know. They know specifically what the cause of death is, but they ain't releasing it. It's not going to be released. I made this comment a couple of nights ago on COURTTV relative to this, that this would be pending. They have determined, my suspicion, Vin, is that when everybody came together in the autopsy room, they viewed or witnessed something in there that could be termed, and you've seen this before, homicidal violence. Okay. Now, they're not going to release the specific cause of death yet. And the reason is, I think, they're probably waiting on toxicology. And again, that's going to be very difficult given the condition that her remains were probably in after this many days. And they might even be looking at histology, which is tissue samples that have to go and be preserved and fixed and then set on slides. Pathologist goes back and looks at all this. Listen, they want to be sure. All of us want to be sure. We wanted to be sure about the ID. We got that. I thought that we probably would. I am not surprised in all of my years of doing this, either as a practitioner or in the media, that we don't have an affirmative cause yet. And I take exception with some of the things I've read, a couple of headlines today where reporters have actually used a headline that her cause of death was homicide. And you didn't say that, Ben, because you understand that. Homicide is a manner of death. There are only 5. Everything else, all the causative factors fall underneath what I refer to as the umbrella of death. One of those 5 manners, it's going to fall under there. And so that's what we're waiting on. They will release it. I just can't say how long it'll take.
All right, Jason Jensen, let's get back to that timeline, right? The YouTube video, the van on the side of the road on the 27th of August, to me, that is such a significant date. Homicide, right? So someone else caused the death of Gabby. We know who she was traveling around the country with. Now, no one's been named as a suspect. I understand that. But when it's time to start focusing this investigation, that's the first place you got to look.
Oh, exactly. And most of the time, the first person that they try to eliminate as the suspect is a family member. We know that 1 out of 3 women are victims of some form of intimate partner violence. And one of the statistics that I follow when I do my cold case investigations is the fact that half of female homicide victims usually are a victim of their intimate partner, either former or current.
Yeah, man. Well, and we go back, we're looking at that video from the 12th of August. There clearly were problems. Things had gotten physical. You had a 911 caller saying the man was hitting the woman. They investigated it, and the police determined that she was hitting him. I don't know what the truth is in all this, but there's violence between these two. I mean, these are just such basic facts that seem so obvious to all of us right now.
Well, I mean, it's clear that, that she was in distress, and it's clear that in a situation like this, and it's been my experience, and I can guarantee the other investigators on the show with me would agree, that most of the time these victims will take the blame when they're being abused. So the fact that the level of fear that this girl was showing, and the fact that this cop didn't take it to that next level, it's sad and it's unfortunate, because her life could have been saved. Plus the fact that they had evidence showing that she was being injured. Now, of course, as my past experience as an officer, all right, I've had numerous situations like this where, you go to a scene and they'll say the girl's being beaten, and the girl says, no, I hit him. And it's sad, but what we need to do is really improve our training tactics and escalate our procedures to take on situations like this and detain the person more effectively so that we can try to eliminate this type of unfortunate incidents from occurring.
Yeah, and Joseph Scott Morgan, you talk about the environment for them. It's a van. I mean, there's nowhere to go. You know, when couples in their house, at least someone can go down to the basement, or maybe someone could step outside. You're traveling around the country in a van, you are with each other 24/7, and whatever is happening between these two individuals is just going to be exponentially explosive.
Yeah, it is. Look, I'm an old soldier, not a sailor, but I can tell you that van would be worse than being on a submarine because there is no place to go. But from an evidentiary standpoint, Vin, I got to tell you, that is what we would call a target-rich environment. And, shifting gears a little bit here, that van is the key, in my opinion, to everything. And the reason it is because whatever went on in that van, we only see a little snapshot of this back from the 12th. But my gosh, man, what could have happened after that in that van? And keep in mind, this individual that they still cannot put their hands on, he had possession of this vehicle for a protracted period of time. So as a forensics guy, I'm looking at this van and I'm thinking, well, man, what did you do with this van in the interim? All of those days that you had it, you had access, you had opportunity, you had this great distance that you're going to cover across our beautiful nation. You could stop anywhere. You can buy bleach. You can buy scrub brushes. You can go to the car wash. You can use a high pressure hose. You can do all of this stuff. What did he do? What was done to potentially alter that van and any kinds of signs of massive trauma that she may have sustained in there? Because still, as we pointed out earlier, we don't know specifically what her cause of death is. What if it was a major bloodletting that had taken place in there? You're going to have DNA anyway. You're living in the van. You're going to slough dead skin cells. You're going to have hair. But I'm talking about massive areas of blood, massive areas of tissue, tufts of hair, all of those things. The individual that had possession of this van, did he have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the frame of mind to go in there and clean this stuff up? And that could either make or break this case.
Joseph Scott Morgan, Jason Jensen, Manuel Gomez, great to have all three of you on the program tonight. Really do appreciate it. We'll see you again really soon. Still ahead.
Thank you.